Unity gives you a lot of live feedback while you're developing your game and points out errors and mistakes you might be making along the way. You look down here in the very bottom, there's this little box that says no errors and I have a green button. You click on that, it pops open an error check window. Right now it's empty and I have no errors, which is great. But let's generate an error so I can show you how all this works. I'm going to add a wait action right here into my first state. So far, so good. If I choose a finish event out of my list of events, bang, I've got 5 errors. 3 right here, 1 here, and 1 down here in the box. So let's start right here and walk through them. First of all, the exclamation point and red circle tells me that there is an error somewhere in this action. Even if I roll it up and don't show the rest of it, it tells me this action is the one with the problem. It also lists exactly what it is that the problem is. Event is not used by this state or any global transition. That's pretty great. Tells me exactly what I need to do to fix it. The same error icon is right here in the State tab, so I know it's not a problem with variables or events. It's something here in the state that localizes the error. And right here on the state, I've got an error, so I know which state it is. If you've got several states in your graph view, this can be a real help. And finally, down here, once again, our green circle is turned into a red one with the error icon, and we have 1 error. If I pop that box open, now I've got an error check window, and it tells me exactly what the problem is. You'll notice it's the same error message right here as I get here, so I'm getting a lot of consistency. If I had another state, say just one right here, and I looked at the error message with this other state selected, really handy feature, if I click on this error, it selects the state with the error and highlights the action in question. So it zooms you right in on where you need to go in order to fix the problem. So let's go ahead and fix this problem. Pretty easy one, right? The event's not used, so let's add it. Add a transition event 1. And look at that. I've cleaned up 3 of these errors right away. I still have 2 errors. There's something still wrong in the state. And I've got a new error down here. This time it tells me transition's missing a target state. We probably could have guessed that. But notice that it's updating in real time. This is live. It changed the error for us. Because sometimes you don't fix things in one pass. It's 2 or 3 steps. Or more. So if I connect this, all my errors go away and we're back to a clean slate. Now these error messages are not here to be annoying. They're here to help you work cleanly and identify problems as you go along so you can fix them on the spot and not have even more of a mess later. Let me show you another example of how these are really helpful. In my second new state, I'm going to add, let's say, a get material. It's a great example. Close this, and it tells me game object requires a render component. Well, this error system has already figured out that I am using a game object, which is an invisible object with no geometry at all, nothing that renders in the game. This is an invisible object. And it tells me you can't get material on the owner because there's no material to get. There's nothing involved. So I can either specify a different game object or look at this, really cool. Click to add required component. If I click in this box, it's added a mesh renderer right here to the object I need and cleaned up its own problem. Now the only thing is I need to pick a material if I were going to do this. But it even adds the component for you. Really cool. So that, and see, the error message comes back if I get rid of it. So it's updating in real time. It's giving you a lot of information as you go, what you need to do. And it's giving you very specific information about how to solve your problems as you move along. Down in this corner near the error output is a debug button. And the menu goes off the screen, unfortunately. There's a lot of options, one of which is Open Log Window. That opens an FSM log. You can also get to this window by choosing Playmaker, Editor Windows, and Log Window. And I'm going to dock this right over here, just so we can watch it as we work. And I want to point out, this is not to be confused with the Playmaker log window right here, which can either be opened by clicking down here, as I've done, or by choosing Window Console. I will discuss the relationship between these two a little bit more as we go on, but in general, the FSM log is just Playmaker related things based upon the FSM that you're looking at the time. It's not the regular, this is everything related to Unity is coming through here. You can forward these events into this log as well if you'd like, and I'll show you how to do that in a bit. Let's go ahead and run this and take a look. Watch over here in the log, and as we step through this FSM, we got a series of results. And the game is still running, we're still in runtime. But we've reached the end. Here's the camera fade out event, and it's listed right here. And we can step through by clicking on this. And you see as we do, it's moving backwards through the active states and showing us what's going on. So you can step through these different events in your state. These arrows indicate when the state was entered. So for instance, here's the enter of the start state. Here's the enter of the fade in state. Here's the enter of the cook-off state, and so on. And these are the things that happened inside of it. And this is going to put a lot of information out into this log for us to use. I'm going to stop this game and generate an error so you can see how this works. I'm going to create a finished state here, connect it to that, make sure we're generating a finished event. Add a transition to finished, and I'm going to loop it right back into itself. Nice and easy. That should generate a pretty big, obvious error. So let's run the game and watch. Here we go. And look at that. Now we've got all these error messages right here. If I scroll up and down, it looped itself a whole bunch of times. And then down here at the bottom, error, possible infinite loop. And you can see we've listed it here too. This error, being a big error, is pushed into the Unity console as well. So the important stuff goes right through. But you'll notice none of the other stuff did, right? Only this error, not all these other little minor steps of when it entered and exit the states. So the really big important stuff does make it through into the Unity console, and the rest of it stays right here. If you'd like everything to end up in the Unity console, there is an option. Come into Preferences, choose Debugging, and right here, forward Playmaker log to Unity log. You can activate that and it will push through much more information and you'll get a lot more detail right there. Okay, so that's pretty obvious. Let's go ahead and get rid of that state for right now. Clean this up. And let's start looking at what we can do purposefully to make this work a lot better for us. If I open my action browser, I've got under Debug a whole bunch of actions right here that I can use. I'm going to add a comment as a start. This is something we do a lot. Let's say right here I want to add a comment. So I will add one there. Close it. Start up. Stuff happens. Stuff starts here. Let's just say that. That's some like commenting your code basically. And right here, we'll add another comment. And put it right there. Stuff stops happening here. Easy. And let's run and see. Notice that these don't show up in the log. These are available to you. If we step backwards, here they are. Right there. They're in the states. We can use them for our own benefit. So we can put names down, little comments of what we'd like to remember later or what we'd like to share with the team, whoever else might be editing this at some point in the future. But they don't show up in the log specifically. So that's an important distinction. But what if we do want something to display in the log? Let's go back to the actions and look again. If we look under Debug, come down here to Debug Log, right? Sends a log message to the Playmaker log window. Sounds great. Let's add one here. And I will put it above the camera fade in. It lets us choose if we want it to just be info, warning, or an error. Let's leave it at info for right now. The text, whatever we want. This message is totally without merit. And let me run it. If we look now, here we go. It shows up right here. this message. If you can expand that out, then you can see the entire message. So it does show up in the log. Now this lets you put specific messages anywhere you'd like inside of your FSMs. Let's look once more. Put it right here. That was info level, so it just showed up as a regular piece of info. If we put it as a warning, run it again, it's going to show up with that yellow icon again, right? There we go. So we've got our yellow icon, and it shows up because now it's a warning. It shows up all the way through into the Playmaker log. And finally, if you would like this to be a really big deal, you can promote it to error, run again, and now it's a full-on error, and we get a dead stop right here so we can totally see it and see what's going on. So right there, you can choose what level you would like to use, info, warning, or error, when you enter a debug log. What if we'd like to output some more valuable information into the FSM log, though? Let's take a look at our available debug actions. We find debug float, debug int, debug object, vector3, and bool. All of these will output the value of these relative variables into the log. Let's try this with a debug int. Now let's go ahead and put one at the beginning and one at the end. Debug int. I'll just drag it up to the top. And of course we need one, so I've got a test int integer already set up, a variable. And let me put one at the end. One more, debug int. Close, and let's just put it above the comment. Test int. Now if I run, we step through the FSM. Right here, at the very beginning of the enter start state, I'm getting debug int. It's telling me it's the test underscore int is the name of the variable, and it's outputting a value of 0. And that makes sense because it's 0 by default. And here we get it again at the very bottom. We're outputting debug int, test underscore int at a value of 0. Let's take some action on that because you're going to be outputting things that are, changing over time. You might be watching the position of an object. You might be adjusting, health or some variable about a character or some kind of game object. You want to see what the value is changing along the line. So I'm going to use a simple int add. Let's go ahead and put that right there. And it doesn't really matter where we do it, but I'll go ahead and put it at the top. And I'll choose test int for my variable. Let's add a value of 2, just to be giving something going on. And if I run it again, now we see again, test int is worth 0 at the top. Its value is 0. And we don't see the int add actually happening because remember, we're not outputting that sort of data here. We're just watching things about the FSM. But here at the bottom, test int is now equal to 2. So we can see that the value has changed along the way. So that is a simple example of how you can output variable data directly into your FSM log. And again, step through and change things right where you need them. You can set breakpoints anywhere in your FSM by simply selecting a state, right-clicking, and choosing Toggle Breakpoint. This turns on a breakpoint for that state. And when we run, we'll get a hard stop right here. This allows you to do all kinds of things. We can zoom in and check things out in more detail. If you'd like to have more than one breakpoint, not a problem. You simply select every state you'd like to add one on and add them. When you reach a breakpoint, it pauses the game. You can unpause from either of these, and it runs forward until it reaches the next breakpoint. And that repeats for as many breakpoints as you have. If you'd like to get rid of one breakpoint, you can simply click, right-click, and toggle breakpoint to remove it. And if you'd like to remove all of them at the same time, every breakpoint in the same FSM, come to your debug menu, and right off your screen is an option that says clear breakpoints. That removes every breakpoint in the entire FSM. Let's take a look at draw debug line and draw debug ray. These are really, really good for allowing you to point out, well, directional based information and relationships between objects. Let me just show you what I mean. I've got a sphere here, nothing special, and I'm going to start with draw debug line. I'm going to drag that right in here. And I can draw a line using this from an object to an object, a position to a position, or any combination between those. I'm going to go from my sphere to my cube. So let's just drag those on. So from my sphere to my amazing cube. There we go. And I can pick a color. Just gives you the standard pop-up. Let's pick something we'll notice. Kind of a bright aqua blue there. And now when I run the game, here in the editor, I'm seeing this line. So I've got a line drawn from the center point to the center point of each of these objects. And as I move the objects around, it updates in real time. I can move either one and the line stays connected between the two. There's another variety of this. Let's take a look in the same state. I'll close that up so we have a little room. Let's look at Draw Debug Ray. This is going to draw a line out from your selected object or location, the position. That could be just somewhere in space, in another particular direction. It's not going to connect to another object like that one did. So let's choose our sphere again as the origin. There we go. And let's pick another color that's really noticeable. Oh yeah, you'll see that one. And I'm not doing from position, but I am going to do a from direction. And let's choose -5 in the Z. So that should point out the negative Z axis by 5 units. Let's take a look. And there we go. I've got my line. And once again, it's not dynamic in the sense that it connects to anything else because it's always pointing in that one direction, but it is dynamic in the sense that it will follow any object it's being projected from. It's also dynamic in that you can adjust, like most any other number in Unity and Playmaker, you can adjust this line dynamically at runtime.